Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and the Democratic Party have a new patron, a sponsor that lavishly spends money on its charges.
What a beautiful picture this is.
A sponsor that has opened its wallet without hesitation, and a sponsor that provides money when other resources are exhausted. I'm Floyd Brown, and welcome to Confidential Report. As a longtime broadcast journalist and writer, I have spent years researching Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and the corruption-riddled Democratic Party. In 1992, I authored the book Slick Willie: Why America Cannot Trust Bill Clinton. And today, I run the research and government watchdog organization Citizens United. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you about a conspiracy that is so nefarious and so large and so broad-reaching that it astounded and shocked even me. I know after the next few minutes, you will be angry like I am angry. Stick with me as we give you each and every detail. To help bring cohesion to this story, I've asked David Bossie, the chairman of the Center for Government Integrity and the former chief investigator of the Government Reform and Oversight Committee, to join us. Dave, this story all starts right here at the White House, doesn't it, with the coffees?
Well, it seems that this president sold access to the White House in an unprecedented manner. Whether it was selling access to the Lincoln bedroom for overnight visits to holding coffees in the White House itself, this president brought in illegal foreign money through those means.
So are you saying anyone with a big checkbook could come in these doors?
Absolutely. Johnny Chung said it best. You had to have a subway token to open the gates.
The most critical days of the 1992 campaign for Bill Clinton were over. After securing the Democratic nomination, using the money provided by the Worthen Bank loan and Riadi, Clinton was able to power his way using tax money and public financing in the general election. He defeated George Bush and took up residency here in Washington, D.C. It is here in this city that the next leg of the scandal unfolds. Behind the walls of this house, together with strategist Dick Morris, Bill Clinton plotted to save his administration.
Hey, James. How are you?
To help us understand the value of this Chinese money, we turn to the most knowledgeable Washington source available, Congressman Dan Burton, chairman of the Government Reform and Oversight Committee of the U.S. Congress. He has investigated the corrupt practices of the Clinton administration and has been absolutely fearless in his pursuit of the truth.
We know millions of dollars came in. We know that 1.8 million is still outstanding that should be returned by the Democrat National Committee. And we also know that Communist Chinese Party leaders were involved in the giving of money to the president's re-election effort.
John Wong is somebody who came to Washington with Bill and Hillary Clinton from Little Rock. He is someone who was a presidential appointee at the Department of Commerce, had a top secret security clearance, and was receiving high-level classified briefings about China and Taiwan. Well, he was holding coffees here at the White House and helping organize coffees and other Democrat National Committee fundraising events here in the White House, or right across the Lafayette Park here at the Hay Adams Hotel. The coffees showed the president in a room, small coffee clutch, politician having coffee, getting to know some big donors. In fact, most of those people, if not all, didn't speak any English. So we had a president in a room with 10 or 12, 15 people at the White House or at the Hay Adams Hotel, where he was the only one who spoke English in the room other than the translator.
So after 20 years in politics, do you believe the president knew these contributions from foreigners were illegal?
Oh, absolutely. Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, re-elected in 1996, went through two of the biggest campaigns in American history, and yes, absolutely, he knows the laws, and he has lawyers that know the laws.
So I cannot overstating the impact that these paid ads have had in the areas where they run. Now, we're doing better in the whole country.
After John Wong was subpoenaed, he disappeared, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Do we know where he went?
Well, we believe that John Wong went here to the Chinese embassy and hid for at least one day, maybe two. He was unable to be located for a deposition that he was supposed to give, as well as the Justice Department.
Isn't it ironic that a government employee, former government employee with a top secret security clearance would come here?
That is one of the reasons that we, as a Congressional Oversight Committee, began to get very nervous about those top secret security briefings that John Wong received while at the Department of Commerce. He then left there and was a fundraiser at the DNC. It's then he fled to the Chinese embassy. That made us very nervous.
John Wong did have a top secret security clearance, and he did not have to go or undergo the scrutiny that other people would have had to undergo to get that top secret security clearance. I think there were some perfunctory things done so he could get that. He went to the Commerce Department, and during his stay there, it's our understanding through our investigation that he was going outside the department and making calls through a private intermediary to the Communist Chinese government in Beijing.
Dave, here we are at the Department of Commerce, and it was behind these limestone walls that Ron Brown moved from chairman of the Democratic Party to Secretary of Commerce and chief fundraiser for the Clinton administration?
Well, it seems that he would have transitioned from the chairman of the Democrat National Committee and raising money to Secretary of Commerce and doing the business of government. But in essence, he gave access by selling seats on the international trade missions, which gave big businessmen, in return for campaign contributions, access to foreign leaders to get contracts.
After I get a job, Mr. President, helps us everywhere. Yeah, right here. There you go. Thank you. This is part of the treaty.
Before John Wong went to work here, where did he work?
John Wong worked at the Lippo Group. John Wong was a top executive of the Indonesian-based Lippo Group, headed by James and Mokhtar Riyadi, who at one time owned half of the Worthen Bank in Little Rock, and that's where they got to know then Governor Clinton and had a lifelong relationship.
And I'd like to thank my longtime friend John Wong for being so effective.
John Wong is an extremely important witness. Johnny Chung was. We finally got him to testify, and what he said was very revealing.
Tell us about Johnny Chung. Who is he?
Well, Johnny Chung is a Chinese-American businessman. He is somebody who seems to have been and become an agent of the Chinese government. He took $300,000 from the Chinese head of their military intelligence, basically the equivalent of our CIA director.
He took this money.
He took $300,000 in China, brought it to the United States, and tried unsuccessfully to give all of it into the Democrat National Committee or the Clinton campaign.
But he actually did give most of it, didn't he?
He did give some, and that is what we uncovered in our investigation. The investigation I led for Chairman Burton is Johnny Chung's true access to the White House, to the President, to the First Lady.
How many times did he come to this White House?
Oh, he was in the White House over 40 times.
Is that unusual for a businessman to come to the White House over 40 times?
Well, I think anybody watching this video can only imagine themselves maybe in their lifetime going once. And this man was in there over 40 times in a very short period of time. He had very open access to the President and to the First Lady.
Charlie Tree is extremely important. I think Charlie Tree and John Wong are the two most important people that we need to talk to.
Well, Charlie Tree is another interesting character, a friend of Bill Clinton's from Little Rock, a restaurateur, if you will, from Little Rock. He owned the Fu Lin restaurant, which was a small Chinese restaurant right next to the governor's mansion in Little Rock. He also came to Washington, where I think they thought the streets were paved with gold. They tried to gain access.
Did he open a restaurant here in Washington?
No, he opened it seems like a printing press, because he was able to deliver millions of dollars both to the Democrat National Committee as well as the Clinton Defense Fund, the legal defense fund that President Clinton set up. He walked in with a paper bag full of cash to the lawyers who headed up the legal defense fund, and that is when the bells went off at the legal defense fund.
Do we know how many times he visited the White House?
Oh, he visited dozens of times himself, including other times with Asian American businessmen who turned out to be high-level government officials.
Do you believe that significant technology has left American hands and gone to the Chinese?
Yes, and this answer may take a little bit of time, but the Loral Company is chaired by a man named Bernard Schwartz. He is the largest contributor to the President's Reelection Committee and to the Democrat National Committee. And Bernard Schwartz was the one who got waivers from the President to give the Chinese technology that not only allowed them to more accurately put satellites into orbit, but to also let ICBMs be targeted more accurately on the United States of America. They had a lot of those rockets blowing up on the launch pad, and Loral gave them very sensitive information and secrets that allowed them to make those rockets work properly. In addition to that, to Loral getting all these breaks and waivers so that they could give these secrets to the Chinese Communist aerospace industry, we had espionage taking place at Los Alamos and possibly other nuclear laboratories. The man who was under suspicion at Los Alamos was a man named Wen-Ho Lee. The President and his National Security Advisor, Sandy Berger, said that they did not know that there was suspected espionage at Los Alamos 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We found out after the fact that Sandy Berger lied to Congress, that the President lied to the American people in Congress because they did know about this espionage or suspected espionage taking place 2.5 years ago. Even though they suspected this, Wen-Ho Lee was left in his position there, even though they suspected he had downloaded top secret information into his personal computer, where by just using a single code word, anybody in the world could get access to nuclear secrets.
I've never seen that happen. Particularly in this type of investigation, which was an investigation under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is a law that provides for the government to acquire information from somebody suspected of being the agent of a foreign power, for example, and you don't have to prove to the Attorney General or to the court beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime has occurred. You simply have to show sufficient evidence so that the provision of a warrant to proceed further is likely to uncover intelligence information, foreign intelligence information. Frankly, I have never seen one of these applications to the Attorney General turned down, and nobody that I've talked to has ever seen one turned down.
So this is the first one in history as far as we know.
As far as we know, it is.
It was here at the Justice Department that most of the cover-up actually took place. Janet Reno and the prosecutors under her consistently frustrated justice.
The law, whether we like the independent counsel law as it existed in 1998 or not, if the criteria were met, in other words, there was evidence that a covered person, the president or vice president, may have violated a criminal law that the statute required the Attorney General to seek the appointment of an independent counsel. So they both concluded that the law required this step to be taken, and I think we're very disturbed, as we were, by the failure of the Attorney General to carry out the requirements of that law.
Janet Reno said that she didn't believe that they were correct and that there was not enough evidence that would indicate an independent counsel should have been appointed. Everybody that's looked into this, including Senator Orrin-Hatch, myself, and others who were, and Senator Thompson and others who were involved in our investigations here on the Hill, agreed with Louis Freeh and Chuck LaBella that an independent counsel should have been appointed. And Janet Reno, once again, in my opinion, was blocking for the president, trying to protect the president from the fallout from the campaign finance scandal. And for that reason, she did not appoint an independent counsel. And I believe she was in clear violation of the independent counsel statute. I believe she violated the law when she didn't appoint one.
Dave, tell me, what is this document in your hand?
This document is a Department of Justice campaign finance task force document.
And it tells us specifically what cases are open and closed?
Absolutely. This document clearly shows how political this Justice Department is.
It confirms in black and white what we see in practice, and that is that this Department of Justice has politicized every aspect of handling criminal investigation and criminal prosecutions.
Of the three central fundraisers in this scheme to raise illegal money, Johnny Chung, Charlie Tree, John Wong, you've been able to get testimony only from one, Johnny Chung.
That's right.
The Justice Department has effectively blocked your access to the two other key witnesses?
As well as Johnny Chung, but we overcame those hurdles that the Justice Department placed on Chairman Burton's getting to the truth, getting to the bottom of it.
How do they specifically stop you from interviewing a witness such as John Wong?
They are totally in control of the individual. John Wong has entered a plea agreement with the Justice Department in order for cooperation to get a lesser sentence. That is a plea agreement. John Wong is supposed to cooperate with all federal government agencies, including the Congress of the United States, which you would imagine would be first and foremost. But the Justice Department has absolutely impeded John Wong from testifying in public in testifying before Dan Burton's committee.
Justice Department prosecutors have included provisions in those plea agreements that call for cooperation with any government testimony, but yet you still get no cooperation?
John Wong and Charlie Tree both have been given what I consider to be sweetheart deals by the Justice Department, a mere slap on the wrist for their involvement in the huge illegal campaign contribution scandal, most of which I believe came from Communist China through them. And they have not yet appeared before our committee.
Subpoenas finally went out after the White House didn't meet deadlines that they had promised Chairman Thompson they would meet. And indeed, subpoena deadlines were not met. So the Congress, once again, was forced to go into hearings with incomplete information that then the White House would use and spin as nothing there. Well, it takes months and sometimes years to find out indeed there was something there, and Congress is misled every step of the way.
How many witnesses have fled the country or pled the Fifth Amendment so far during your investigation?
We now have 122 people who have taken the Fifth Amendment or fled the country. And a little anecdote for you. When we had 70 people, only 70 who had taken the Fifth or fled the country, I asked the FBI director, Louis Freeh, if he'd ever seen anything of that magnitude before. And he said, as a matter of fact, Congressman, I have. And I was taken back a little bit. And I said, really, Mr. Director, when? And he said, when I was investigating organized crime in New York. So there has never been a case in the history of the United States Republic where we have had this many people take the Fifth Amendment or flee the country where an administration was involved.
Do you know of any cases you've ever faced that were like this?
No, because when I served in the Department of Justice, very proudly under Presidents Reagan and Bush, we would not have allowed this thing to happen. We would not have allowed people to just make bogus claims and avoid testifying. We would have taken steps to force them to testify. We would have gone into court to seek contempt citations for continued failure to answer questions. We would have enlisted the help of the State Department, for example, to try and bring people back who had left our shores and gone overseas. We would have talked with the administration to try and bring diplomatic pressure to bear on those governments that were harboring such individuals. So it never would have reached this point in the first place. We would have, under the Reagan and Bush administrations, acted as a Department of Justice and sought to force these people to testify in the absence of legitimate claims.
I've spoken to many Americans that believe that they can no longer trust law enforcement because of corruption connected with this whole fundraising scandal. What would you say to honest, law-abiding citizens who've lost faith in the American ideal of equality before the law?
Well, I think those people who are concerned about this Justice Department are justified in their concerns. I believe that real justice is not being realized through Janet Reno in this Justice Department. I think there is a corruption at the top level of the Justice Department. I believe Janet Reno is blocking for the president, and for that reason I'm very disappointed. And I think people, as I said, are justified in their concern.
I hope they haven't lost faith in law enforcement, because there's a lot of good people that put their life on the line every day. What they should do is be outraged when someone tries to politicize law enforcement, because that's a fear we all have. We don't want people with guns and the authority to walk into our homes to have a political agenda. We want people who go by the law. And so I think we shouldn't lose faith in law enforcement. What we should do is demand that politics be taken out of our law enforcement.
Let me just say to those people who think that justice will not ultimately win out, we're going to continue our investigation. I believe we have good people at the FBI, contrary to what President Clinton is saying and what Janet Reno is saying, because they're trying to protect their derrieres. The fact of the matter is, I believe that the FBI is trying to do its job, and if left alone, they will do their job, and they'll do it the right way. So I'd like to just end up by saying to the American people, whoever's watching this, that hang in there, the cavalry's coming. We're going to make sure that justice is not denied and that it's applied equally to everybody. And those who are stopping the wheels of justice right now won't be able to do it forever, and we'll get them eventually.
I hope you've enjoyed Confidential Report. We worked hard at Citizens United to make sure that all the important information that you need as a citizen was enclosed. Now I need to get this videotape out to millions of Americans. But to do that, I have to duplicate it and I have to distribute it, and I need your help. Please take a moment right now. Think about how much you can help. Take the address on your screen, write it on an envelope, and please send me your maximum contribution. Without you, this project will not stop the censorship of the mainstream media. Thank you, and God bless you.